Hello again everyone, and welcome to the channel. If you're like me and model commuter trains in HO scale, you've probably recently received your Metra Nippon Chariot cars from Atlas and Bud cars from Rapido. I noticed that this video had not yet been made by anyone else, so I'm going to be upgrading my Metra Nippon Chariot cab car with an ESU LokSound Fx 58219 decoder and a scale sound system speaker. These upgrades will bring fantastic sound and lighting control to your cab car. Let's walk through the steps from start to finish. Scale Sound Systems speakers can be ordered directly from the website. Scale Sound Systems makes this speaker, which fits perfectly inside the Atlas cab car. This is the ESU LokSound Fx 58219 decoder. Links to both products are in the description. The 58219, as with any ESU LokSound decoder, needs to be programmed. I will not cover programming in this video because there are many great resources on YouTube which can teach you more than I ever could. I program my decoders on the ESU Decoder Tester 53900. Scale Sound Systems recommends this double-sided tape for mounting their speakers. It's a little difficult to work with, but really reduces the opportunity for vibration, which would impact sound quality. Cut a piece of tape which will fit the bottom of the speaker, and have 2 wires ready to attach the speaker to the board. Next, carefully remove the shell of the cab car. I use tweezers to help separate the shell from the tabs that hold it in place. Once you have separated the 4 tabs at the center of the car, the shell should slide off with ease. Next, unscrew the overhead lighting. Note that there are 3 screws at this level, 2 near the center of the car and 1 at the B end of the car. Set them aside safely while you do the rest of the work. Pulling the masking tape off the wire leads to the front lights and loosening the other extra wire will allow you to pull the overhead lighting up from the interior. The upper level is held on with 3 screws. 1 on either side behind the cab, and 1 in the middle hallway near the stairs. The 3rd screw is a little hard to see, but if you push the wires out of the way, you will be able to find it and unscrew it. Set these screws aside safely, as they will also be used to put the car back together. The 21-pin dummy plug is attached to the bottom of the overhead lighting board. Be careful to avoid bending the pins, especially when removing the plug. I use tweezers to spread out the forces so that it pulls upwards. Remove the dummy plug. If you will only run this cab car on DCC layouts, you do not need to keep the dummy plug. Next, install the ESU LokSound Fx 58219 decoder, pushing down to make sure the decoder is nicely seated. Apply a small amount of flux onto the contacts of the Scale Sound Systems speaker. A toothpick is very useful for this. Next, Solder each of the wires in place, taking care that the wire touches only the contacts and not the driver housing. If the tips of the wire are not tinned, you will have a harder time forming a solid connection, so be sure to do that before attempting to solder the contact. Perfect. Both wires are connected nicely. The location for the speaker is in this area on the lower level of the car. Cutting this row of seats off was really tedious work, so I'll spare you from watching, but I used this knife and a coarse grit sanding wheel on a rotary tool to remove the seats. Take the double-sided tape that you cut earlier and apply it to the bottom of the speaker. Again, it's difficult to master, but once you have done this a few times, the tape does get easier to work with. Holding the wires upwards so they don't get stuck, place the speaker in place where you removed the seats. Be sure to get the placement correct as this tape is really sticky and hard to move. Then, thread the wires through the opening in the stairwell and reattach the upper level using the 3 screws set aside from before. Remember that there is 1 screw near the center of the car and 1 on either side behind the cab. The 2 small holes that you see in the overhead lighting board to the right of the arrow are for attaching the speaker. A little bit of flux in these holes will help you solder a nice connection. Use tweezers to hold the wire in place while you solder the wires to the board. Pull the wires to make sure a good connection was formed. Before going any farther, power up the cab car on the track and make sure your sound and lighting all function as intended. It will be easier to fix with the car taken apart if there is an issue.
Caution, the doors are about to close.
Cut a small piece of Kapton tape to hold the front wires onto the board. Then use the 3 screws to reattach the overhead lighting board. Now that the interior of the car is all back together, here is the final product, with the decoder mounted overhead to the board and the speaker mounted to the floor of the lower level. Prior to recording this video, I had already used paint markers to paint the retention tank caps blue and the warning stickers yellow. I think this goes a long way to enhancing the appearance of these cars. Finally, carefully reattach the shell to the chassis. Getting the cab end of the shell over the tabs at that end of the car is the most challenging part. Once that slides on, the whole shell will almost fall into place. Check the tabs on the bottom of the car to see if it has seated nicely. Now, it's time to head to Chicago Union Station.
Caution, the doors are about to close.
Thanks for watching the video, and please leave a comment if you have any questions or suggestions regarding how I did this installation. I would love to make more videos like this one, so let me know if that's something you'd like to see. Thanks again, and see everyone Wednesdays for a transit video and Saturdays for a rail video.